like I told the story before, is that when you have an actual dollar figure associated with how much you're getting paid per hour, it's like, well, how much is my happiness worth per hour? People generally put a pretty high sum on the happiness that they'd be willing to pay per hour, and then money just becomes relatively irrelevant.
Hey guys, welcome back to an episode of Subcut. Today we're going to be talking about money, and in particular how to change your perspectives on money, because especially with the whole COVID thing, I think a lot of thoughts have been happening about potentially developing some toxic views on money and being stressed financially and that sort of thing for me personally. So I'm Emma. I'm a third year physiotherapy student.
I'm Neil. I'm a fourth year medical student.
I'm Justin, and I used to be a doctor. And I just got something in my eye. But Emma, tell me more about
Tell me more.
No, where did this topic actually come from? Because it's a bit random.
Yeah, it is a bit random, but I think lately I've just been thinking more about money because I've always found myself being one to stress about finances, even though I'm not particularly struggling with money. If I actually look at like the numbers and that sort of thing, like I am still financially secure, but my views on money are sort of like, I always tell myself that I'm poor, if that makes sense. Like I'm always like acting as if like I need to hang on to every single cent. I can't spend money on anything that's just purely for enjoyment. And actually when this first started occurring to me was when I was out one day in Takapuna with one of my friends, and it was like a Thursday evening or something. We were walking through and there were just a bunch of people sitting outside like having dinner. And I was like, what are these people doing having dinner?
That's so unusual.
How dare
I
they?
was like, what are these? Honestly, genuinely, like it wasn't even like lol. I was like, actually, like, what are these people doing having dinner on a Thursday night? Like, don't they have work tomorrow? What are they doing just like having dinner for fun, like with their friends, like that kind of thing?
To that extent, yeah.
And I've also in my relationship, my boyfriend, he is a person that's very chill about money. He's sort of like, money's there for a purpose. Like saving is good, but also you're supposed to have money so that you can actually buy things that you enjoy and you can look after like that kind of thing. And I'm just sort of the person like, no, we have to save, like, and I've always found that in my family, it's been a bit of a stressful thing. Like we've always kind of thought about money, and I don't know if that's to do with also just being like an immigrant kind of thing, that it's always been there's always been a little bit of a grind to do with that. But I know that it's really toxic. I know that it's definitely not something that I want. Like that's not how I want to view money because it's not helpful to me. And I think in a previous episode, you said like there was a study done that in cash in hand, you actually need like $50,000 or something to actually be well off. Yeah, to be like happy.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact number anymore, but
the concept was just that there's some minimal amount that satisfies your needs, for which anything surplus is just like,
I think it was like 70-something thousand US. It was a US study, and I don't know how old that is anymore, so I can't adjust for inflation or anything, but it was anyway.
Okay, sorry.
No, I mean, if this was done in like the 60s, it's almost not relevant anymore because it's a different world. And
no, but that just got me thinking, and next year's my final year of physiotherapy, and I've been looking into how much physiotherapists like make on average, and I know that obviously private practice makes more, but I'm always like, no, I need to put my happiness first, and I see myself in like the hospital, but then in my head there's like this little thing that's like, ooh, but like money. And I just, I want to change my perspective on that, and I was wondering like, is this like a money is important, change my mind? No, this is like I know money is important, but only to a certain extent. And how do I make myself focus on other things apart from money as being part of happiness?
Okay, do you know, this reminds me of this story. We'll talk about this topic more, but like I just have to tell this story first. I remember working with this student. He was, I think it was like 15 or 16. And like we were in the middle of a conversation about how, this is a kid who wanted to sort of get into medicine. He was thinking about it, but he just wanted general like help with his career and skills development. And I was like, okay, cool, let's get to work, And then I was, teaching him like various skills that are going to be life-changing. And I was like, okay, so like, right now you've got a great opportunity. You can like go find like a place, like a volunteer at a place to just get some work experience, get some industry contacts, start like, knowing people and getting some names under your belt so that like people in the industry that could really get you a long way. And if you were in high school, if you're like 15, 16 years old, let's say that you're interested in like let's say you're interested in like tech, okay? And then you do a tech internship. You just go up to a tech company that you think like, oh, that's an awesome tech company. And I just want to work. I just want to be in that environment. And you go up to them and say like, I'm super keen. This is what I can do. Like I'm willing to basically do whatever. And you don't even have to pay me. I just want to like get exposure and experience. And then if you go in with that mentality and ask 10 places, at least one of them, if not all of them, will say like, yeah, we're keen to get you like involved somehow, because enthusiasm tends to be reciprocated, right? But this dude was like, but how will that make me money? And I was like, well,
I think you mentioned this to me last time. Yeah.
I may have. He was quite frustrating. So yeah, he, I was like, well, look, how much money do you think you can make from doing this? Like, let's say that you work like a part-time job instead of doing this, and you hustle super hard. How much are you going to make by the end of the year? Like $1,000, $2,000? I was like, if you made $2,000, would you be like, wow, I made a lot of money? And he was like, yeah, I would say that's pretty good. Yeah. That was very good. And I was like, that doctors make like $1,000 a week, right? Yeah. From just existing in the job, And I was like, so you have the possibility right now to invest this year, use your time and not have money, and instead like change the outcome of your yearly income, 10 years from now by $500,000 per year, instead of the trajectory that he was definitely going down, which was like relatively useless. Yeah. So like that, it's just such a, it's so obsessed with just that immediate short-term gain of money.
I really like how Gary Vee sort of puts it as well. He asks people that, they want to become rich and everything like right now, but they don't really have a job and they're not working for anything right now. And so he basically asks them, what is your time worth to you right now? Yeah. He essentially just says dick zero, because he's got absolutely nothing going for him. Yeah. He has no job, no qualifications, nothing. So what are you like expecting to lose if you don't go ahead and, put yourself out there and try and hustle through these scenarios and stuff? Currently worth nothing anyway.
I think there's like this idea that like everyone knows that money isn't happiness, but when it comes down to it, especially for me at least for me, like I know outwardly that money isn't happiness, but like my tendencies and my thoughts on a daily basis kind of like it's like money is kind of like a little bit it's a little bit of happiness,
I think that it's maybe it's because we've grown up with a constant relative deficiency of what we would consider like the optimum amount of money. Having said that, I think maybe like if you look retrospectively, like how much happiness have you missed out on because of not having funds? And there may be like moments where you're like, oh yeah, there were like little bits here and there that, like if I had more money, that would have been better. But for me personally, if I think about it, like, yeah, there are certain areas that like provide me stress or whatever it is due to lack of money. But if I really think about quality of life and happiness in general, I don't think I really took much of a hit at all.
Yeah. And that's this like topic about money and happiness and something I've like, initially it was just like, oh, maybe it can buy you happiness and stuff through the things like when it's super superficial and like very young and stuff. And then you sort of transition to like, money's not everything. There's heaps more things more valuable in the world and life and stuff than that. But now I've started to just sort of like ease back on both extremes and sort of like realize that it really depends on who you're talking to. Because if you speak to someone from extremely humble beginnings, coming from, like some immigrant country and stuff, I'm thinking from like my own family and stuff that way. And then like, actually money did bring a lot of happiness when your lifestyle is nothing like what we have right now. I can't even begin to describe what it might have been like back then, because I've lived a very, very privileged and sheltered life and stuff, and so when you have conversations with those people that came from those beginnings or those areas, I feel like they can almost be justified to some extent in saying that.
Well, there's a threshold effect.
Yeah, and that's what you were saying since last time as well. But like, I guess with at least the audience that we're talking to, or most people that will discuss this sort of concept, most of them will come from, your like westernized, relatively at least like middle income, if not higher sort of job and stuff, where they usually have their needs fulfilled and stuff. And that's usually, that's the threshold thing that you're talking about. And so anything surplus from that, like, sure, like on top of that, money might not be the main thing that you should be striving towards, but below that threshold, meet your needs first, of course.
But like, what even is the surplus? Like, that's what I want to know. I want to know when I'm comfortable. Like, what is being? Because I have no concept of money. Like, I like pay a couple of bills and like pay like, but it's not like I'm managing my money like as a complete adult at the moment. It's sort of half-half. And so it's like hard for me to gauge an understanding of like, so for example, like looking up on Careers NZ, how much does a physiotherapist make? And I'm like, 50,000. Is that a lot or is that not a lot? Should I be worried about this? Should I be choosing my career based on which one like makes me the most money? That kind of thing. So
Well, first of all, I'd say like, no, you shouldn't pick a career based on what's going to make you the most money. And primarily the reason I'm saying this is not something that's super like deep or anything. You can monetize anything. Like you could be a physio. You want to make more money? Just like sell some online courses. I don't know. Like you can pad up your income relatively easily. You know, if you just leverage your skills, you know, that's actually possible to do. And if you're willing to hustle a little bit more, you can always make more money. And if you're starting with something that's, I don't know, like 40, 50K, you can always supplement that income to a decent amount to the point where you're actually at a better income level without having to like sacrifice your career that you would actually really enjoy. So fundamentally, I think, you know, you shouldn't be choosing a career based on money because of the fact that we live in like a culture where it's actually very monetizable. Like everything is very monetizable. Like even nothing is monetizable. You can sell like the randomest, like anything.
And I'm seeing like bottled New Zealand or like bottled Aussie air being sold in like not trading with like Amazon and stuff. No, now it's like I don't even know how I got these ads. I'm like, anyway, but
Yeah,
like two sort of questions come up to my mind. Hopefully, if I can remember them now. First one was okay, like why do you actually think that money will provide you that sense of satisfaction or fulfillment, or maybe happiness if we're putting it into that context? And second one being, how much money do you actually personally need to satisfy yourself? Because that, I think, both of those will be relatively personal questions.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's going to be a blanket answer for everyone. When we just discussed that with, you know, what SEP status you are, low or middle or high. With that itself, that is
SEP meaning
distinguishes.
socioeconomic position, right?
Yeah.
So I think about money. The way I've thought about money has changed a lot over the years. When I was young, I was real into money. Like there was this time that when I was like, I think I was like 12 or something.
I'm investing in Tesla, dude.
I should have invested in Tesla. I remember.
I dropped 16.4 billion recently.
Yeah, it'll go back up.
Yeah, probably will.
he gets so
Go
much
Elon,
faith in
let's go Elon.
Yeah. Even though I forgot his own kid's name. Anyway,
I forgot his kid's name. No one can remember.
X-Ash A12.
It's like
That wasn't legal
it's like he
after
just
all,
hit his
was
head on
it?
the keyboard and then that. Oh, wow, would you look at that?
Anyway, just kidding, Elon. Please sponsor us.
Please, Elon.
No. So when I was really young, I remember doing this job where I was basically, I can't remember exactly what the detail was, but there were like these two different websites, and it was like a web development company. And what they wanted to do was they just wanted to like kind of clone one of the websites they previously built into like a new website. And all they needed to do was someone to go through and actually literally copy the links. And this, I don't know what website it was, but it had a lot of links. Like we're talking like thousands of links. And so they were like, okay, every link that you copy, you'll get like 20 cents. And I was like, all right, there's like thousands of links on this website. I will probably be making like hundreds of dollars. And I was like 11 years old, right? $100 is like, I'm rolling.
I can imagine that.
Yeah. So
Imagine 11-year-old Justin.
I know, and he'll be like,
just hustling with my, you know, do you know?
Copy paste.
Okay, this is actually what I did when I was 11 years old. I just remembered. There's something called a ghost mouse. A ghost mouse is a program that records your mouse movement and then you can play it back. So what I did is I got 4 windows cascaded together, and then I had a thing so it'd be like copy, like drag it, like paste it,
Just automated
like
what you
scroll, and then do it, and I would just like leave it on overnight so that it would
you're
work.
such
Oh my
a
gosh.
savvy
You
11-year-old.
know what? Actually, that's exactly what Justin would have done.
yeah, of course.
Wow,
But it didn't
that's
work.
cool.
It didn't work.
Oh, okay.
It didn't work because like sometimes it's like it lags a little bit, but the
Oh.
ghost mouse doesn't keep up, and then it will just like randomly click on a random thing, and then it just screws up. So it didn't really work. But anyway,
How do we get to
the
that?
point is, yeah. So I was like really money driven at the time, and I did a lot of stuff to try to like get more money. Like that's how I sort of started doing freelance design work and things like that. And then I went through that period, you know, that you're talking about, where you're like, oh, money's not kind of everything. And that's sort of how my parents raised me anyway. So yeah, like at a certain level, until you reach a certain threshold, that money is providing you a lot because of the fact that you are literally disadvantaged in like a basic level. Like if you can't eat, that's quite an unhappy situation.
That's tough. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and if you can't eat the food that you want, you know, there's obviously a slightly less, but still, you know, a happiness hit. But then there's the other idea, right? Which is the idea of like, okay, like what actually are we talking about when we're talking about happiness? Which is more of like a internal aspect. So fast forward, the way that I sort of think about it now is like, on one hand, it's quite emotive. On one hand, it's quite calculated. And on the other hand, it's more like not introspective, but more about my internal drive for happiness.
Okay.
So the idea is like, you can be poor and happy. Like, it's possible. You can be poor and also happy.
Yeah.
And that just depends on your outlook and your perspective, right?
Or financially.
Yeah, financially poor. But if you have a life where you're very grateful for things, you know, we're talking about just stuff that's very researched, right? Like, we don't have to go into this in super amount of depth.
Yeah.
Like, anyone that's listening, if you're interested in these topics, you know, just search for like gratitude and things like that and the effect that it has on happiness. So there are going to be people that are extremely rich and also very unhappy. And the studies would suggest that the most unhappy people are at the extremes of both spectrums.
Just into like, I was just literally just hanging out with my mate Rishi, and he just said one of the risk factors for depression is high SEP, socioeconomic position.
Yeah,
Strange.
there's actually
What
a
the heck?
U-shaped distribution. So
Yeah.
where when you're U-shaped, when your income, when your income is too high, not only does your happiness reduce on average, also your child's happiness reduces as well. Because they just
There's a lot of
grow up too
factors for
spoiled
that,
and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so parenting becomes harder as well. So there's like a sweet spot in the middle. But the problem with the study is that it doesn't really consider like the actual individual, right? Because you can have someone that's at the most extreme level of poor and the most extreme level of rich. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of happy rich people.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
And I'm sure there's a lot of happy poor people. So it's obviously there's an internal drive that makes a big difference. And that's really the thing that would be you can consider like a game changer, like the first step. The first step is, if you don't know how to be happy, you will never be happy no matter what the situation is. So money isn't even in the equation yet. You know, it's just, can you be happy? Like, do you have the skill to be happy? And I think a myth is that happiness should just be natural. It's like, why the hell you think happiness should be natural? Like, what do you think? Like, we were born into like the world existed, and then we just had buildings and society as it is. You know, like we evolved to, you know, a different sort of situation. Like happiness is not meant to be like something that is just like inherently a
That
thing.
happens
Especially,
as you go.
and especially like think about all the competing motivations and interests that there are on this planet. So if you think about people that are doing advertising or marketing and they want to sell you, like, let's say cigarettes, right? They don't care about your happiness. You know, they're just going to sell you whatever they need to sell you. You know, the person that knows that you're addicted to their product or game or service, or, you know, the people that are like, you know, running the casinos, they don't care about your happiness. And they're spending millions and billions of dollars on figuring out exactly how your brain works, because, you know, the brain really stopped evolving a long time ago. And just hacking into those primitive desires. So the distractions and the triggers for unhappiness are supra normal. Like, for example, there are studies saying that humans don't get the same kind of happy response from seeing a person's face over a video call as they do in real life. Okay? So what that means is that there is inherently an actual aspect of physical connection. So with increased like social networking, like social media and digitalization, that's going to take a hit. So we live in a society which is not really optimized for happiness. That's not what the primary metric of successful society is. It tends to be more economical. Yeah. So it's really illogical to assume that happiness will just happen naturally. But at the same time, if you try too hard to be happy, that also stops you from being happy. So it's about accepting what there is to be happy and gratitude and all that. Let's talk about the skill of happiness, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first aspect. And then we can start thinking about money. And the aspect of money. So on one hand, the emotional aspect of money, it's like, what is the money actually contributing to you? So there's a great saying in marketing. I don't know who initially said it, but I originally read it in a book called This Is Marketing by a very famous marketing dude called Seth Godin. And he said, do you know Seth Godin?
Oh, it just rings a bell. He's written a few other books.
Yeah, he's a very well-known dude. He's got podcasts and stuff. And I don't know if he's the one that said this, but he said, okay, like when you are looking to buy a when you're looking to buy a nail so that you can hang a shelf on the wall or like hang a picture on the wall, what you're buying is not a nail. What you're buying is a hole in the wall. But what you're buying is not the hole in the wall. What you're buying is the ability to hang a picture on the wall.
Sure.
But you're not buying the ability to hang the picture on the wall. You're buying the feeling that you'll get when you see the picture. Right?
Well, yeah, it's like 3 steps extended. Yeah.
So
ahead of what you're doing.
money becomes the currency through which we are accessing things that can potentially give us the happy feeling.
Of course. Yeah.
Right? So if you think about it that way, yeah, well, like, no shit, money will get you some level of happiness because a lot of happy things are locked behind a paywall. Right? So assume like every hobby you had, you required money for. Money would buy you access to those activities, which if you know how to be happy, if you know how to bitch about everything, you'll never be happy. But if you know how to be happy, that's gonna unlock happiness for you.
I was just finishing reading Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell, and I might be misquoting with this as well, but he was referring to, one of the stories he was talking about was, anyway, related to alcohol. And basically he was saying that, previously it was always seen as actually I'm not sure, was it like a depressant? It can be both. It's like, it's on both sides of the
I
inducing.
forgot what the actual thing's
like,
called, but...
Yeah, inducing and inhibiting of that enzyme. Yeah, whatever. Like it sort of just rings a bell that like, money almost seems to be the same way. The emotions and the personality and the values that you have before you have a lot of money, if they're shit, then your use of the money is also going to be terrible. Same way that goes the other way around. If you are a better person and everything like that, and a more positive thing in that way, then your use of the money and what you do with it and how you sort of use or react and with having that much money is also going to be beneficial, I guess, for you and for other people that you
like I
have
think
the money
if you're
with as well.
relying on money for happiness, fundamentally that's an issue.
That's an issue.
Yeah.
But if you are not relying on money for happiness, but it just so happens that there are times where you feel that money is restricting your ability to access certain things,
Yeah.
then that's a different type of decision there.
Yeah.
Because it's like, how much happiness is this going to bring me? And do I really need that to be happy? It's kind of, it's like, I could eat this cake or I could not eat this cake. And if I eat the cake, then I'll feel good while I'm eating the cake, but I might feel terrible afterwards because, like I'm getting fat
Calories.
or whatever. Yeah. But it's like, okay, if for you, the joy of like eating that cake is so great that it actually offsets every other,
This also sounds like me. Yeah.
Welcome to your therapy session.
Carry on.
it's like passive therapy. Yeah, so that's a different type of decision, right? Obviously. So, but if the person knows how to gain happiness from the alternative, then that's fundamentally a skill, because you're not always going to be able to get the first thing that you want. Like if you really want a certain car, but you can't afford it, are you going to be unhappy with every other type of car? Because a lot of people actually like that. And I don't see these people being, number one, financially very well off, and number two, very happy. So if you're the type of person that wants a certain car, you can't afford it, but you find another really cheap car and you still can enjoy what you like about it, then that's fundamentally a skill. And when you have more money, then maybe you get a little bit more luxury from that. But you can see at that point, it doesn't tend to move the needle too much.
Yeah.
My other point of view is the calculated side, which actually goes back to Emma, what you were saying before. I was about to call you Emmeline from the conversation that we had.
Wow, exposed.
We just had a conversation about our other names. Neil, do you have a?
This is Neil
Yeah.
Kulkarni.
Neil.
Is that it? You're
Neil.
just Neil.
Just Neil.
Cool.
Yeah.
You're just Neil. You don't have another.
I hope I'm Neil.
Oh yeah.
I'm just Neil.
Okay.
Neil Kulkarni.
Yeah.
No middle name?
Oh, Deepak. I know it's my dad's name.
Oh, yeah,
Deepak.
right.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, Emma, what you were saying before, like 50,000, is that a lot?
Yeah.
Is it not? So I started thinking more like this when I started running a business, where now my happiness is very closely connected to my business.
Yeah.
And so I need to know like how much money do I need? And I read a lot more about that. So my personal finances got better as my business finances got better.
Yeah.
Just the skills are transferable. And I had to think about this a lot because obviously when I quit being a doctor, I took a huge pay cut. I took a $60,000 pay cut, by the way.
Yeah, and I think that was that was another thing that started me thinking about this, because you started talking about the fact that there was a high risk associated with staying in medicine. And in my mind, I'm like, no, there's a high risk from leaving to start a business. And then I realized you were talking about risk as in terms of happiness, whereas
And
that
fulfillment, yeah.
that thought didn't even cross my mind. I was just like, my mind went straight to the money.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, that's such a good point. Like, Emma, stop.
Yeah,
Like,
but it's hard to think that way until you already have enough money for you to break out of that. So when I started working as a doctor, I got to skip all of the, if you work at a job that starts at 40K and you over 10 years work up to 90K, then you've got 10 years of hustle and all of that sort of stuff, and it's a bigger deal. For me, graduating straight away, I'm walking into a 90K job.
Yeah.
So money never becomes an issue from the very beginning. So I'm already straight away freed from that and able to, I'm still like young and fresh enough to think about like what I want out of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I haven't had to slave away for 10 years to get to that point. But by the way, and if you're thinking, wow, that's a really good reason to get into medicine, just remember,
perfect segue.
just remember that, all the other people that started on that 40K job, they started working 7 years before you did because you had to stay in uni for so long and then all the other
That's
stuff.
such
Right. So like all my other friends who like did accounting or whatever, they're like buying their houses.
Yeah. No.
And then you're like, I graduated.
Time to pay off my loan.
Yeah, which is
Of
$100,000.
$100,000. Yeah.
If you live in a country that has a generous student loan scheme like New Zealand. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. So when you're like, I told the story before, is that when you have an actual dollar figure associated with how much you're getting paid per hour, it's like, well, how much is my happiness worth per hour? People generally put a pretty high sum on the happiness that they'd be willing to pay per hour, and then money just becomes relatively irrelevant as long as it's beyond a certain threshold. So me, I knew that my pay cut would actually take me below likely what that threshold actually is, because I was taking a pay cut from like 90 to 30K. Right. So I was really relying on being able to pad up my incomes through other contracting jobs and things like that. So it was going into a financially very risky situation. So this is like what I just do. By the way, I'm not a financial advisor. If you're listening to this and you're going to follow this financial advice, blah, 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 legal stuff, whatever, like just do what you're on.
Copyright's meant to be over here right now.
Yeah, just, like if you want to follow my advice, do so at your own risk. I take no liability, no responsibility.
T's and C's, I don't know,
Blah, blah, blah.
like the asterisk and
The
then
long-
small print words at the bottom.
Yeah.
Of it. Jane, you got this.
Acts of God, etc. Okay, not. But I think it's good advice. But I think it's good advice because it really actually changed my, like when you have your money under control, it really feels very empowering for a lot of other things. And my money is not like super under control, but it's way more under control than it used to be. Okay. And now like business people listening to this podcast will be like, man, what a noob. But you are not a business person. So that's all good. Just don't show it to your friends.
Okay, so
Anyway.
in summary, so far what we've sort of discussed and we've got to is that, okay, they're like superficially, most people tend to start off with, yeah, money can buy you happiness. And then we go to the extreme of, nah, no way, money's like not everything in the world. And then we sort of appreciated there's more of a middle ground. Like, yeah, it is personally mediated, it's calculative, it's emotive based as well. And it sort of depends on what you sort of want.
Yeah,
and
but
what
there's
your
sort of a
hourly thing
step.
as well.
Like you need the
Yeah.
skill of happiness first,
Yeah.
and then money becomes like an additional aspect, and then we can think about the calculative part,
Yeah.
which is how much do you actually need.
Cool.
So it's like really simple. When you calculate it out, just like what are all the bills that you have? What are all the expenses that you have? And just tally all of them out, and then write down what it's for, and then just go through each of those and think, is there anything here that I can negotiate lower? 20% of the time, there is. Phone bills, electricity bills, rent even. There are ways to negotiate it down. And often consumers often have a lot of power to negotiate it down. If you're looking for tips on negotiation, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss is what I recommend. FBI negotiator, hostage negotiator. It's pretty good.
Here's a masterclass or something as well.
He's got a lot of stuff anyway. So look at what you can negotiate down. Even if you negotiate it down by like $5 a month, if you're negotiating 5 things down by $5 a month, and that extra $25 is going into your pocket or somewhere else, that actually is very mobilizing, and you can do a lot with that. And then what are the expenses that you can straight away cut that you don't need in your life? So for example, like think about this: Netflix. Do you watch the same amount of Netflix every single month? If not, cancel it some months. Cancel, and you can do that. Or other things, like if you're in a relatively dead part and you're thinking, I'm not going to be listening to my Spotify very often, just cancel that and then just get onto it later. There are ways that you can save money here and there.
Maybe habits as well on a week-to-week or day-to-day basis, like coffee.
Yeah, coffee
stuff
was a
costs
big
so
one.
much.
Coffee is a huge one. So when I was working as a house officer, because everyone buys coffee every single day, I would just not carry my wallet with me.
Yeah.
and I'll turn off my like phone.
Sorry, you got this now? Thanks. Yeah.
No. Like, but the thing is, yeah, that you feel guilty because if you go to coffee, yeah, other people will buy it for you.
Yeah.
So I just avoided coffee. You know, if
Yeah.
everyone's going for coffee, I'll just be like, I'll just meet you guys at the, you know, at the table.
Yeah.
I'll get us a table or something, and then you guys get coffee, and yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one's gonna be like, "Do you want coffee?" And you're like, "No." And you're like, "No, I'm gonna buy you a coffee." You know, people don't generally do that.
Okay.
They don't like force.
Yeah,
I thought
I've
they
seen
would.
a few times it's happened.
Well, in that case, you're just like, "Fine, yeah, you
Yeah,
can buy me
okay.
coffee."
Yeah.
But yeah, like I drink a lot of coffee, but I buy
Yeah.
the coffee and things like
Yeah,
that. So
yeah.
there are a lot of things that we spend money on without even thinking about
Yeah.
it. Coffee is a big one,
Yeah.
huge one. You can
Yeah.
probably save like $100 a month
Yeah.
on just coffee.
Yeah.
And then once you have that as your expenses, that amount is how much you need to have as the bare minimum just to live, right? But that's not enough. So then you look at how much do you actually expend on the luxury, you know, weekly spend. Most people are spending a lot of money without really realizing it on a day-to-day. And you can actually cut that down on a weekly amount and just give yourself a weekly budget. So I don't spend a lot of money on a weekly basis. I get by with like around probably like $50 to $70 a week. And that will last me for the week's worth of like spending. And if you set yourself like a pretty conservatively high amount, like if you think you only need 50, then set yourself like 60, because you don't want to like be messing around with like shifting money between different accounts or anything. So if you set yourself that as your weekly, and then you set yourself like a small amount allocated to buying, you know, splurging on gifts or whatever, and you figure out, okay, I need like $200 saved at least once every couple months to buy myself something special, divide that over the weeks, then you end up with different accounts with different allocations that are actually calculated out based on what you know you need, which also encompasses how much you need to splurge on gifts, on other things. And it gets you into the habit of buying things that you want, and you don't have to hold back on it, but also saving for those things and not just going crazy with your money and knowing how much you have to spend, budgeting, exerting self-control, but having the luxury to be able to spend on the things you really do want and provide a good balance. So for me, like my income now is a lot lower than it was as a house officer. My actual ability to save has gone up by a lot, you know? So just being able to manage little things like that actually really goes a long way.
I think COVID is
50K.
Yeah.
I would say 50K for like just an individual. If you don't have like a family, is a lot of money that you can be doing with. You know, especially if you're not paying a lot of rent. Yeah. Or if you're not paying any rent, then 50K is a lot of money that you can do something with. But most people will just, you know, instead of saving that few hundreds here and there, they'll just spend it on the you know, whatever, like blow it at a casino or something.
Yeah. Another thing that I've sort of come across often with how you sort of use your money as well is like investing in yourself as well. Sounds cheesy, and I feel like it's been overdone as well. But like when you think about it, I mean, for example, the main change that I've sort of done, at least in 2020, is just in terms of reading.
Yeah,
books.
I was just gonna say books.
I love that stuff now. Like it's my cocaine. Oh my gosh. Like it's just the disclaimer, but no, don't do drugs or whatever. No, but like it's so fulfilling. You learn so much out of it and stuff. And those like when I spend money on that, I'm like, I think about it. I'm like, I can justify me buying this book right now because of the potential like gain I can get from this.
Yeah.
Especially if it's on like managing my personal finance or something, Rich Dad Poor Dad or something like that, you know. But anyway, yeah. Aside from that stuff as well, because we aren't exactly financial advisors and stuff as well. And given the whole purpose of this podcast, you mentioned earlier, you know, if you want to do, if you want to be rich, don't do medicine. That's a thing that I've often heard as well. But let's pick that apart a bit more because I feel like, honestly speaking, I sort of just accepted it. But now when I actually had a conversation with mum about it, and as you know, it's just like, why is that actually the belief that we have right now? Because actually, no, yeah, go ahead. Why do we think so far?
Actually,
Why
I
is
have a question for
thing
you
like that?
first.
Oh,
When you were applying for medicine, because if you guys didn't know this, Niels has been a very lucky person to have actually known for a while that you've wanted to be a doctor, right? Like you didn't really go between different things. You were sort of like, yeah, like medicine is like what I want to do, and you seem pretty happy with it. Is that true?
yeah.
Did you know that doctors don't make like that being a doctor wouldn't be the best way to make a whole lot of money if money was your main focus. Did you know that before applying for med school, or were you kind of like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this and I'm going to be rich? Like, was that part of your thinking?
I think considering my upbringing, money has been something that I didn't need to worry about too much. Even if I stayed at the same amount of SCP, I don't know how to describe it really, as I currently am, I think I'll be completely like more than satisfied. And so it was never like really, like truthfully speaking, I can't believe I actually never thought about it. I was sort of just like, oh, okay, they get money, that's good. And you know, funnily enough, it's something that everyone else, like all the aunties and uncles and stuff will be telling you, oh,
Yeah,
you're going to
you're
lots of
gonna
money,
be-
huh? I'm like, yeah, sure. Yeah, cool. Yeah, there's that too. I forgot about that. Yeah, cool. You know, but it's more so just like, like the naive year 7 kid, like, oh, that'll be cool.
Yeah.
Like that was the extent of my decision making to go
Yeah,
into that.
I think that's another
talked
thing
about
though,
that
like
before.
upbringing and I guess your parents' values that they've put into you and how, I guess like as a child, I was someone who was really aware of money as well. Like I was the type of person to not tell my parents about camp because I didn't want to like give them the sip and
Yeah.
see that it was $200, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. And I think that's kind of also what influences my beliefs on it now. So unlike you, money was a big thing when I was choosing my career, but not enough to choose a career that I completely just like didn't like. Whereas I think some people might fall into that trap and trick themselves into thinking that they're gonna love this job just because of the money.
Yeah, and I think this is the part where I might, I'll mention what I wanted to say before, and this is the main thing that I was sort of that I wanted to talk about because okay, let's take it back to your poor lower SEP immigrant family and stuff that's come over. Okay, what about the career of medicine really appeals to our parents and stuff in that way? Is it the money really? Is it? Because when I started like looking into it a bit more, all those sort of, your like stereotypical careers and stuff like, okay, let's say, yeah, sure, maybe lawyer, maybe engineer, but definitely doctor.
Yeah.
Okay. There is like stability in terms of job security and stuff in that way is a given. It's guaranteed. Absolutely. And when you think about the upbringing that those sort of, like let's say my parents or like, not like fully extent, but at least anyone from a lower SEP sort of position has, stability is something that's really important. You want to make sure that you're going to have food on the plate every single
I know where
week,
you're going with
right?
this.
And that's like, you can think about, okay, you can mistake yourself into thinking that money is the thing that you're really wanting to achieve and gain from this job. Whereas actually it's probably going to be stability. Because like we said before, we need to reach that threshold of meeting our needs first.
Yeah.
And you want stability to meet your needs. You can't go gambling your life and trying to say, yeah, I'll try and make a big sale on this day. Stability, you're not going to, if you want stability, you're not going to go into some like stock market sort of investing thing or like sales or something like that. That's up and down and that's risky, And so when I started thinking about the other careers that you could really compare medicine to, it's there are I can't even think of that many others that will give the same sort of stability that medicine has to offer. In terms of the the challenges that medicine has to offer, they are often also predefined. Yeah. The challenges are like they're established risks. Like what you're getting yourself into. You know that this is a sort of career the way, like
even the risks
potentially,
are stable.
even the risks are stable. That's like, you can't even call it much of a risk and stuff anymore. Like, that it's going to be stressful. It might have an impact on your family life,
like
on your own
territory.
sleep, on your own stress and everything like that. Compare that with something in sales, like property, for example. You're not sure whether this house is going to sell or not. You're not sure if, there's going to be some new sort of law passed on that's going to make it difficult for you to build houses or something like that. That's what I would consider and when I think about that, the challenges are more like a potential loss, right? Or the benefits are a potential gain. We're talking about risk in those situations. And that's not very stable, And so I've sort of appreciated now that actually, yeah, it's like money isn't what our parents are sort of working towards, it's stability. And that makes so much more sense.
Yeah, because just a lot of the time, I mean, from my experience, my aunties and uncles or my parents often they put themselves into immigrant positions. Stability hasn't been what they have had, and that's probably why it's exactly what they want for us.
And then you pose the same question: can money buy you happiness? Heck yeah, yeah. Can money buy you stability? Okay, no, less so. Can stability buy you happiness? To that extent, sure. When you're in that sort of position, I definitely think so. From that point on, It depends who you're talking to.
Well, I mean, I talk to a lot of parents, right?
Sure.
And
Right.
and
All sorts of stories.
so I think number one is that a lot of the people who really value the stability value it because they didn't have the stability in their own life. But a lot of them are very not financially very savvy. And so not everyone, like there's certainly a lot of people that are, but I do find that a lot of people that do have less stability and are earning less also just generally have not as good personal finance management. Like I know people who are doing very well and they have other sorts of jobs that are potentially more risky, but they're actually financially extremely stable because their personal financial management skills are very good. So because like just because you earn a lot doesn't mean that you are stable. If you earn a lot, if you spend a lot, you're just as unstable. You know, it's about the like percentage, if you think about it, you know, and maximizing that percentage between earning and spending is more of a skill than anything else.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. So I definitely noticed that a lot of the parents I talk to, especially immigrant parents, they don't really have very good financial literacy. And so they haven't really thought about it actually even that deeply. They like have the vague idea of like stability, but they're like, it makes a good money. And then it's like basically just sort of stops there. Like they don't actually even question it further. It's just sort of, that's enough. And the second thing is that I don't know if that's really the full story, because if you look at different cultures, there's a big difference. So when I talk to parents who are like born and raised here, just Kiwis, or just like Caucasians in general, Europeans, just people that are more brought up in a Western system, a lot of them don't really value that heavy level of stability as much. So, I mean, it's not to say that every single non-immigrant I've talked to has been like wealthier.
And likewise for everything I was saying as well.
Yeah. So obviously it's not like, and I like some of the parents that I've talked to, like they work in, they might work in like, manual labor jobs or like construction and things where their income is not super high. They have had a lot of financial instability, but at the same time, they just don't value having that stability as much. So it's not that inherently the stability is creating happiness either. I do also think I can't speak for other countries, but like from the Indians / Sri Lankans / and from knowing Korean and Chinese parents I've all spoken to, there is like a beyond toxic level of obsession with material happiness and the need to like impress others and showing face and prestige. And it's like, it's just obsessive.
There's a chip.
Yeah.
And shoulder.
And I don't know how much of the stability is actually stability and it's more so like social affluence stability. It's like,
I think that's part of the spectrum as well.
Yeah. And I don't
Once
know
you
if the
get
culture has kind of dressed it up in a certain way, because if you take the same income, and also a lot of these countries are just generally poorer, like disparity gaps are larger. So maybe that's a difference as well. But I don't think stability in itself inherently provides happiness. I think stability is required.
Of course.
But I think the stability can come in many forms. So like, let's say, for example, you don't know how much you're going to make in terms of money, but you know that what you're going to make is going to be at least enough just to get through the bare minimum. But you know that you're always going to have time to spend with your family and your loved ones, right? There's an incredible stability there.
Yep.
Right?
I agree. Yeah.
What if you know that you're going to have a higher income surplus to your needs, but you never know whether you're going to spend enough time with your kids, and you might get 20 years down the line and realize that you screwed it up. That's not very stable, is it?
It's
Right?
the same thing. Define your terms, you know, like
So
what is-
yeah, I think it's difficult to make an argument if it's based around like something like that, like a single principle that money is what it kind of brings you. I think it's more the question is like, what is it that money is going to bring you? Like that's so valuable for you. Like money is the door that you're opening. What's on the other side of the door that you want, and how worth that is it for you? Is there any other way of accessing it? And when you get it, will you even still be happy? You know, and there's a lot of thought there, and this thought is difficult, which is why people don't do it. unless you're trying to quit your job, and then you have to do it because you just really don't know whether it's a good decision or not.
What episode is that, Justin?
That's I don't know, episode 4, maybe 7. The only way you'll find out is to troll through all of our episodes and
do something with the subscribe button.
Yeah, I mean,
what do you want to choose? What step on it? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if the
Lick it.
if the subscription button is the sterile field of an operating theater, you definitely want to just
leading nicely into
You
next
wanna-
week's
into next week's
you want to
episode.
fall directly
Yes.
and contaminate the hell out of that
Oh no,
that sterile field.
this is foreshadowing.
Click the subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm getting our content out to more people. If you like what we do, if you like the podcast, if you like the stuff that we talk about, we appreciate all the support. If you like seeing episodes like this, then make sure to subscribe because we try to do episodes every fortnight. If you got any suggestions, any comments about this topic, money's a sensitive topic. It's binding in your life. Leave a comment down below or
Or just
wherever.
PM us. Yeah.
Yeah, or just directly message Neil, his personal email address.
Just specifically, I'll
He
say it
will-
outright.
He will reply to you instantaneously. And yeah, if you're listening to us only through the podcast, you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. So search for Subcut. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.
See ya.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in to Subcut. If you guys have any suggestions for content, please make sure you send it through.
You can get in touch and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, or find us on our website at jttmid.com/subcut.
Subcut is a podcast brought to you by JTT. If you or anyone you know is interested in a career in medicine, make sure to get in touch and check us out at jttmid.com.